What's cracking, big dogs? Welcome back to the HQ. It's Nicholas, BDGE Fantasy Football. It is Monday, so we are diving behind the scenes of the fantasy football industry as we always do, bringing on a guest from the industry, talking about the branding, the marketing, the business, all that kind of stuff, peeling back the curtain a little bit. Today we have another awesome guest, Joe Holka. He is full-time with the Action Network and Fantasy Labs. He started off, I believe, at 4for4.com, which is one of my favorite fantasy websites out there right now. He is also a former professional hockey player, which is really, really neat. I'm excited to talk about that because we have yet to have an athlete on the channel. We have a lot of people that talk about athletes, but this is the first time we have an actual athlete here. So, Joe, I'm super pumped to have you on the channel for the series and for the interview. I know it's been a long time in the works, but tell the Big Dog Nation what we got going on behind the scenes.
Nick, what's up, man? Thanks for having me. Yeah, like you said, long time coming. That's a nice way of saying I've been like dodging you and telling you I was too busy for too long. But dude, I have been really looking forward to this. I really like a lot of the other interviews you did like this. I'm really excited for it. Yeah, it's great. So I actually was full-time with Fantasy Labs and the Action Network. Now I'm actually full-time for myself, which is even better. A little scarier, but even better. But love all those guys over there. And it was kind of an interesting way to get into the industry for sure. Just like you said, I played hockey growing up, played Division I college hockey in Minnesota, played a little bit of minor pro. And the cool thing about playing pro hockey at the minor league level is it's not quite as glamorous as most people probably think, but had a lot of time on my hands. There's only so much Netflix you can watch, right? So started kind of diving into the football thing, more or less just because I always took it a little bit too seriously. My friends will tell you that. So I kind of did it as like a hobby at first, and then like anything else that I do, I normally go a little bit overboard, so it gets kind of snowballed from there.
Okay, interesting. So, okay, I didn't realize that you were full-time for yourself. When you say that, do you mean you are a full-time DFS player? Is that what you mean?
Full-time doing content on my own. So I do some consulting on my own as well for kind of some higher stakes DFS guys. And then I also do, the content thing, the Twitch thing full-time. And yeah, so basically, yeah, I'm playing DFS, of course, been playing DFS the entire time. Have ramped up the stakes a little bit, which is good. But yeah, full time for myself. I don't even know how this. I feel like we're having the conversation that I should be having with my in-laws at some point. Like, what do I actually do all day? It's a really hard thing to quantify.
Yeah, you know what? I'm kind of in the same situation because like I don't work for a content company, but I put out content. And that's like how at least I'm attempting to make a living right now. And when I try to explain that to like my grandparents, it's the worst conversation I've had I have to re-explain it to them every single time. Yeah. That's interesting. Now, I know the first piece of content I believe you put out when you first started working for the Action Network and Fantasy Labs was an article that was titled "How I Hung Them Up to Bet on Myself." And it was basically this pretty long article about you kind of putting hockey in the rearview mirror and you betting on yourself to, just become a content creator and really immerse yourself in the industry, fantasy football, whether it was season-long DFS, all this stuff. Now, that was a very vulnerable article, and it was, something that it was really a good look at the behind-the-scenes stuff. And I will link that down below. That'll be the first one in the description. It was not similar in the exact content of the article, but I had Matt Harmon of Yahoo on for the interview last week, and his, the tweet that he has pinned on the top of his Twitter profile is like his article about how he lost 100 pounds and his like weight loss journey. And I kind of see those as similarities for you two. Of course, like I said, the content is not the same, but in terms of really opening up and being like vulnerable with your story and moving on to the next part of your life, this is what I saw when I read through that article. So when you were writing that, like what was, your idea behind it? Was it just like a way of getting it off the chest? And like, what kind of reaction did you expect? And what kind of feelings did you have when you finally like hit submit on that article?
Yeah, first off, Harmon's the man. And if you've watched kind of my growth throughout the industry, I pretty much do some similar things to Harmon, just not quite as good. So it's just, it's perfect that I did an article that was a personal article. That's kind of where I got the idea anyway. But for the most part, yeah, it was just kind of, I wanted to get everything off my chest. I also wanted to thank some people that really helped me. When I was starting, it's like anyone in the industry, like was doing a lot of things, wasn't really making much money. You're working towards that full-time goal. At some point, I'll probably do a part 2 to all of this. And sometimes you make it to that goal and you figure out that's not exactly what you wanted in the first place. But kind of the impetus for this article was to kind of tie a bow on hockey. I kind of touched on it quickly, not being as glamorous a lifestyle as a lot of people realize. And I definitely had aspirations of playing in the NHL. And then I left college after my junior year, actually. I finished school a year early, so I didn't miss out on any of that, still graduated. But when all was said and done, I was probably I was probably not quite as good as I thought I was. Looking back on it, maybe I should have stayed at school. But that's kind of the way, that was kind of my journey. I got to play pro hockey. It was an awesome experience. Didn't quite make it to that final step. But I wouldn't change those experiences for the world. And I wanted to go and kind of thank some people. Went through a pretty tough time in my life, directly, kind of in the middle of trying to decide if I wanted to play that last season of hockey or if I wanted to hang them up. I decided to play one more year just to try and distract myself from kind of all that personal stuff I was going through. And in the midst of that, when I did decide to stop playing, it's for anyone that does that, and anyone that plays at a high level, you have so many people that you don't want to let down, because I've been doing this my entire life. The hockey thing was like such a big part of who I was. I felt kind of lost in a lot of ways, but at the same time, it's still like I cared so much about what my friends thought about what I was doing, why I was not playing anymore. And I guess the football thing, like I knew for me personally that I already had some friends that were sitting in an office all day. They were doing like a lot of us have finance degrees. So they're like doing insurance or doing whatever, and they're in a cubicle. And I knew for sure that was not going to be something that was going to make me happy. So I kind of, in a roundabout way, found this football thing through some personal adversity I was going through hockey. And it just kind of snowballed from there. So it was kind of a natural transition to like, hey, like this is a great time in my life just to take a chance, kind of bet on myself. And that's what I decided to do. Obviously, I wouldn't recommend really what I did on the DFS side to most people. I took a very high variance approach. It could have easily gone terribly wrong. I was fortunate enough to have a really good first DFS season, taking it extremely seriously. But like I said, it could have easily not worked out the way it did. I ended up having a really big hit at the end of that football season and paid off my student loans, paid off all my credit card debt. So like I kind of got a fresh start in that way. And for me, it was like a way to kind of justify the decision I made to stop playing. And it was kind of a fun article to write, to kind of just let some people know, at least kind of a peek underneath the curtain of what I went through. And it was definitely a pretty crazy journey. And it was nice to kind of quantify that, I guess, through an article that's going to be up there forever now. So,
yeah, it was really good stuff. So anyone out there watching or listening, I highly recommend you go check that out. I want to talk about, because like I said, this is the first time having like a real athlete from the higher level on the channel. I feel like there's a lot of similarities between, if you want to say like entrepreneurs for lack of a better word, and athletes. In a way, you kind of have to pave your own path the entire way to the top. Would you say, like, how would you compare the two? Because you've obviously been an athlete at maybe not the highest level, but you've been up there to the point where the majority of people that try to pursue being an athlete don't get to. So you've been up there, and now you're working for yourself full time. So like, what would you say are the common, I guess, denominators between being an athlete, being an entrepreneur, like the goods, the bads, and why do you think, because I feel like a ton of athletes nowadays are kind of realizing, the lifespan of a professional athlete is short. And a lot of them are taking a big interest in starting their own businesses or investing and just entrepreneurship as a whole, because entrepreneurship is starting to be very glorified. And if you could pull it off successfully, it's a really cool scene to be a part of at the moment. So like, what are your thoughts between the similarities of those two things?
Yeah, I've actually never thought of it that way, but that's a really good point. Maybe that's kind of why I enjoy the entrepreneurship so much. It's because you almost get in, or like what you get out of it is pretty much what you put into it a lot of times. It's something to work towards. Like I'm the kind of person that like I need to be busy. Like I've been busy my whole life. I need to have stuff I'm working towards, or I get bored. If anything, I take on too much. I'm like too like spread out. I need to kind of rein things in a little bit. As far as the athlete side of thing, though, I definitely got to the point where I was probably overtraining in the summers because I wanted it so bad. And then sometimes it can kind of work against you in that way too. And I think that entrepreneurship can be the same way. It's kind of like if you take on too much, a lot of times you don't really become a master of anything. So that's something I'm trying to improve on the content side of things. But yeah, the entrepreneurship thing, like you said, it never used to really be like a cool thing. Even like we talked about the in-laws, like telling them that you're an entrepreneur is basically like telling them you don't have a job. So
Right.
They don't quite get it yet. But hopefully at some point it's all worth it. And I definitely think it will be here soon.
Yeah, it's interesting because like if you're at the top of either of those, if you're, a top entrepreneur or a top athlete, you are like put on a pedestal, right? Like everyone loves you. You're really cool in today's society. When I look at it though, I'm just like thinking out loud here. As an athlete, like as an entrepreneur, when you're starting off, it's much harder, right? Because like you're telling people that, and you kind of sound like corny because it's like, oh, I'm an entrepreneur, but it's like, what have you achieved? You know what I mean? Like everyone's like, I don't know what you're even talking about. Like, show me when you've proven something. But as an athlete, you're told at a young age, right? Like in kindergarten, pre-K, if you're good at a sport, like boom, the path has kind of been laid out for you. You still have to work just as hard to get to the top of it, but there's no like part in the beginning that's kind of mysterious to you. Yeah. So it's an interesting like roadway between the two of them, and I think it's cool to see all the athletes kind of shifting over to that because they realize that by the time they're 30, 32, 33, they have their whole life ahead of them. But like luckily you were able to kind of see that you want to do other things at a younger age. That could be like I'd imagine a big hit to your identity and like who you are as a person. If at the time you're 33, you're like, what am I doing now? Sorry, there's a bunch of cars.
Oh, that's good. No, it's a great parallel though. Even I think that going through the similar type of adversity that you do in sports, it's always ups and downs. So like I'm from Arizona originally. Everyone said my entire life, you're from Arizona, you'll never play Division I hockey. I did that. And then they're like, you're not good enough to play pro hockey. I did that. Didn't quite make it all the way, but I did work through some adversity. And the same thing as an entrepreneur, as like kind of a content creator, like I've been through some adversity as well. Went through some adversity with like just starting and doing a lot of stuff for free, but also went through some adversity with Fantasy Labs, with the Action Network. But now everything was so worth it. I mean, even just in the next month or two, I can't say a ton yet, but like everything's come full circle and something like really big is happening for me that I'm like super excited about. So it makes it all feel worth it in some ways. And even like circling back to the hockey thing, like my first year of junior hockey, which is like right after you leave high school, I lived in Canada for 3 years. My first year of junior hockey, and my entire life, everyone had been, like you said, like everyone had been telling me that I was a very good player for being from Arizona. Might not make it to college, might not make it to pro, but I was aware that I could take it somewhere. But my first year of junior hockey was awful. I basically like came down to earth and didn't have a very good season. Went back to Arizona in the summer, kind of reevaluated where I was, decided to kind of and invent myself in some ways, maybe take the game a little bit less seriously. Went back my second year in Canada, had an amazing season, got a scholarship to play at St. Cloud State Division I. So like, I think that like, there's always got to be like a significant bump in the road. Like I read quite a bit. Like, I don't know if you're a big Seth Godin guy, but the dip, just like making it through that dip. And then just like finally, like that's exactly where you should be after that. So it's
Arm's book right there, Seth Godin. That's This Is Marketing, his last book that came out.
Yeah, I read that one too. So like I'm a big fan, like I'm a big believer in just like you just gotta make it through that dip. A lot of times there's something better on the other side waiting for you.
Yeah, that's a great point. And like I think a lot of people, they don't want to try things because they don't want to fail. But I also think there's like a different way of looking at failing at things. Like I feel like people have a mindset that failing is like black and white, right? It's like, oh, you have a test and you fail, or you run for office or you run for whatever, XYZ, and you don't win. But the way I look at it, and it kind of seems like the way you describe it too, is like failing is can be gray. It's like a long-term thing. It's like something maybe you put a lot of work into over like a year or two, and maybe it doesn't work out as well as you imagined it. Or maybe, you have to pivot to a different avenue to get where you ultimately want to go. And that's the way I think of my, I guess, failures, if you want to say it. And you're right. Like anyway, anything that's happened, like in my life, I wouldn't regret it, because obviously it takes you to where you are today, and you learn along the way. But like, I just think it's an interesting conversation to have. Like your failures, as cliche as it is, are lessons, because it's not so much like you just fail on the spot and then everything is ruined. It's things that you learn along the way. So people that are nervous about starting, it's like you'll never get somewhere. It's like, imagine going along a fork in a road, and you can go the right way or the wrong way, but you're never going to know what the right way is unless you go the wrong way, then have to turn around and go that way. So it's like you have to do it. It's a natural part of the process. Now, you as a content creator, there is a lot of different avenues to choose from, and some of them might not work out, and you might not realize it till 6 months, a year down the line, when you're not getting engagement or things aren't happening. Now, you seem to be pretty heavily invested into Twitch, and I'm very interested in hearing about your thoughts on Twitch, because it's a platform that I put out a lot of content on YouTube. I put out a lot of content on Instagram, because I know that right now that's where a lot of the young demographic is, and it's easy to kind of hit them there where it's not saturated. Twitch is one I've been thinking about getting more into. What were your thoughts behind getting onto Twitch? Was it like intentional, or were you just like, oh, Twitch is cool, and then it gained some steam for you, and then you're just like, I'm going to stay here? Like, what was the thoughts behind Twitch?
It was very intentional. I mean, and you hit on the three that I'm trying to focus on the most as well. Like when I first came up in the industry, like all I cared about was Twitter for the most part, because my content was on websites, it was on wherever it was, but like Twitter following was like extremely important. Now it's like you said, it's about engagement, it's about building a following, but actually like building a community as well. And I think Twitch does community better than anyone. I originally started doing my live streams on YouTube originally, and that was fine. Like my first I think 4 shows last year for NFL were on YouTube on Sunday mornings, and then a couple people that I respect, Manny Laura, Ryan Hodge, of course, Al Smizzle as well, they were on Twitch for their shows. And I wasn't really sure why. And I think that like a lot of people, I just didn't know a lot about Twitch. Like I don't really have a big video game background in general. So I didn't know a lot about it. And I was probably a little bit lazy to learn. I saw the platform and I was like, this looks way too hard. I'm just going to do YouTube. But I think that like having different ways to find you is a really big part of all of this anyway. So like people will hopefully find my Twitch stream, and then I can condense that down into more like focused YouTube videos. They like those YouTube videos. Maybe they like the other content that's even more focused down for Instagram. So like having those different tiers and being able to bank content on Twitch live first, where I can monetize the best way anyway and build a community. I think it's the best route to go currently. So that's kind of the impetus behind that. I wanted to find a better way to monetize, but also have like different tiers of different groups of people. You're good.
So I think I'm in the same boat in that I know, like, deep down, I'm like, oh, I should be on Twitch. And I feel like that's the best way to start live streaming, or to move my live streaming over there. I'm very like deep into YouTube. So I like going on live stream on YouTube, and like, I do the same thing that you did Sunday mornings, and I get a ton of engagement and all that stuff. To get started, like, what would be your tips for someone like me? Is it like, because I went on Twitch and I was thinking, because I know they just started the fantasy sports channel. I think that's like relatively new. I don't even know if I'm like saying these terms correctly or not, but you can go on there, and I tried like uploading a video to see what would happen. So since it was so new, just to see if I would get engagement on a stagnant video, but like I couldn't really figure out how to get it working. Yeah. What would you say to someone who was like just starting on Twitch? Because this is a platform that's relatively new, and definitely really new in the fantasy space. So this is somewhere that someone trying to break in could definitely, get things rolling.
Yeah, it's an interesting platform because like you're used to YouTube, where you can actually like get in front of people by doing the proper SEO, by doing proper things on the back end. Instagram, to a certain degree, there's an algorithm for that as well. Twitch, there really isn't a great way to search. So people are going to find you based on the homepage, maybe, but probably not. Like that's based on like how many views you have. And the people that are getting the most views are the people that are these big kind of esports or Fortnite type things anyway. So like the DFS niche on Twitch is so small, no one's ever going to find you by the homepage. So like my biggest advice is to try and collaborate with other people that are doing things that are similar. So like I originally started on Twitch at like my normal time that I was doing my YouTube stream. As soon as I realized that I need to collaborate with these other people that were doing it in order to hopefully capture some of their audience. So like what we ended up doing is I went on first. Ideally, you don't want to be first though, but I went on first on Sunday mornings pretty early. But then what you do on Twitch is you raid your viewers. So you basically move all the viewers from your stream to the stream that's on next. So I basically would raid all my viewers to Manny Laura. And then he basically would raid all of his viewers to Ryan Hodge, who would raid his viewers to Al Smizzle right before kickoff. So if people feel like they can be on like the same show but with different people, that's a good way for people to find you. Being interactive on other people's streams as well. So like as the morning's going on, I'd be like in Manny's chat, like trying to engage with his community. That's a really big part of it. So like trying to capture those guys in some ways, I think is a good way to start. The best thing about Twitch though is the community is so much better. Automatically, if someone subscribes to you, if they do anything, their Twitch automatically attaches to a Discord community, which is basically like a Slack chat. So it's no extra work for me to have that on the back end. You can open up premium channels that way. It's another way to monetize, but it's also a way for the community to kind of grow even when you're not around, which has been really great. There's different things you can do for like, they're called custom emotes. So like people like Manny does community probably better. And if you haven't had Manny on, you should have him on too, because he does community probably better than anyone. He has all of these kind of like inside jokes that he's turned into like these little emotes, and it's hilarious. The people really like engage, and that's just like something you can't do on YouTube. I think that like it's got to be a piece of the puzzle anyway, because YouTube, people are going to find you on YouTube that never would have found you through Twitter or through Twitch. But you want to have all those different levels. I think you're just missing the top one. Like just doing this, what we're doing right now, we could do this live on Twitch, and then that would be the first layer. The second layer would be just your normal YouTube editing from there, and then just all the way down the ladder. I think that's the best way to go about it.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, a lot of takeaways there. I probably need to get a little bit more serious with Twitch, and I think I will starting this summer. Now, you mentioned like monetization. From what I've heard, like Twitch is a great platform for monetizing, and people are, maybe I'm wrong about this, but people are a lot more willing to donate to the content creators. Now, when I'm on a live stream, say Sunday morning on YouTube, I'll have, I don't know, like 300 or so people like in my live streams, which means I'm getting like 300 sit start questions. Obviously, I can't answer all of them. So I'll answer as many as I can, and I'll say like, hey, if you guys want to throw in money through the super chat, and that's just a way that people can, directly insert money to my Google AdSense or whatever. For those of you guys that aren't aware of what that is in the audience, and I'll be like, hey, I'll answer your question if you super chat me. Would you agree? Is that correct in assuming that like the Twitch audience and community is more willing to donate money to, and why do you think that is, if so?
Yeah, I think that like just the aspect of, so what you can see, you get badges for how long you've been a subscriber as well. So people have the incentive to subscribe to you. Like your tier 1 subscription is $5 a month. The creator only keeps half of that, but it's still like as you go on. So like your 6-month subscription, you have a different badge, and people can see that in the chat. I can see that as well. So like if I'm on a Sunday morning, the chat's flying, I'm going to prioritize the questions, even if they don't tip, the people that have been around the longest, the names that I recognize that have been engaging in the community. And it's pretty easy to see who those people are right away. But yeah, if people like kind of decide to tip you bits and all of that. It snowballs a lot of times, and even the subs as well. So you can gift subs to the community, which is really cool, and they're random. So so one of my one-on-one coaching clients actually won one of the showdown slates last year. So he came into the Twitch stream and then actually gifted like 25 random subs to the live stream. So that randomly goes on to the accounts of people that are watching that don't have subscriptions. And it randomly picks 25 people. So it's just kind of a cool thing that people will go in and gift subs to the community and not really just to one person. And it's kind of like a cool thing. You can run different contests and it's all random anyway. So it just gives people, like, people are really gracious. Like if they were there, maybe watching, maybe they haven't really dove into a subscription or anything like that, and they get gifted a sub, they're like, oh, cool. And they'll be around for that whole month, hopefully. And like, there's also ways you can get free subscriptions. So like everyone nowadays has Amazon Prime, or a lot of people. And if you have Amazon Prime, you automatically get access to a Twitch Prime subscription, which is a tier 1 subscription, but it's free. It doesn't auto renew, nothing like that. But so a lot of people are just kind of taking advantage of that even. And then you get into the Discord where all the premium channels are. You feel part of the community really without even paying anything too. So there's a lot of different ways that it's Amazon, man. Like, they're taking over. They've thought of everything.
Yeah, they have. Okay. So they've done a really good job of taking what like YouTube hasn't done and making it super, super community based is what I'm hearing you say pretty much. Okay. And I wanted to talk to you about like what you're putting out on YouTube and stuff, because you put out pretty like high quality stuff in terms of like post-production. Oh, I remember what I was going to ask about Twitch. Now, the way you made it sound was is like, you know, YouTube, you could find people through SEO and you could do that with blogs and all that stuff. So it's very much like organic. You said going and collaborating with other people, and also like kind of pushing the audience that you already have over to Twitch is probably the number 1 and 2 ways in order to grow your audience, right? So there's no like, I don't want to say hacks for lack of a better word, but like there's no quick way to growth. You're not going to like end up on like a viral stream and that's how you like shoot up your audience or anything like that.
Yeah. So the way that I went about it, and you're right, like if you don't have access to one of the big Twitch streamers, or even if you're just starting, I think a good way to do it, and I think it's something that I've done that most people haven't, because Twitch doesn't make it easy to do interviews. If you do it, I'm happy to walk you through how I do it. It's really not that easy to do, because it's supposed to be just a one-on-one type platform, right? So you kind of have to do it in a weird way. But I decided to do a bunch of evergreen content live with like bigger names in the industry, so that I could tweet that out. And like Peter Jennings, like he was on my streams even before I did the evergreen. He was on my streams on Sunday morning. So just because Pete's on my streams, people come and watch. Hopefully they stay and they watch the other streams that I have throughout the week. So I think a good way to do it is to take collaboration a step further, build in some evergreen, like even these conversations here, get on some guests, and hopefully people watch you live and they want to see more of your content, so they stay. So I have been working towards like I did like a PGA week. I did an NBA week. So like a whole week of just getting on like amazing guests. Like part of that is like, I've been in the industry for quite a while now. So I built relationships, like even in-person relationships. And this is not somewhat down a rabbit hole, but like I go to the FSTA conference every year. I don't go to the conference. I go there to meet people and like meet these people in person and actually build relationships, so that on a Sunday morning, Peter's sick, can't do the stream. I can direct message Evan Silva and be like, hey man, can you bail me out here? Like, can you jump on the stream for 15 minutes? It would like really help me out. He's like, absolutely, I'll do that. So like that, like having those relationships is by far what's taken me the furthest by far, for sure.
Yeah, that's so big. Like even, I mean, not just like at a Twitch spot, but anywhere you're trying to grow, whatever industry you're in, the relationships are what's going to probably get you to the next level. And just doing these interviews for me has opened up like a ton of different things. So you're focused on Twitch, you're focused on Instagram, you're focused on YouTube. Now, the stuff you put out on YouTube is, I was just getting into before I remember what the question was for Twitch. It's pretty like high quality production in terms of like the animations and stuff that you're adding in. Is that something that you do personally? You do all that stuff?
Thanks for noticing, first of all, because those take forever, and it takes a long time, and it takes a long time to edit that together even after the animations are done. So yeah, I spent a lot of time. I did all the animations myself. I have a little bit of a background with video editing just from my hockey days. I used to edit it sounds dumb, but I used to edit highlight videos of myself, send them to scouts so that they could actually see like a quick 1-minute clip of whatever I've been doing for like the last 4 months. So like I've been editing using Camtasia, which is basically like a software that takes a video of everything that's on your screen. I've been editing with that since I was like 15 or 16, like pretty young. So I've gotten really good with the animation side of things. I watch a lot of Gary Vee as well, and he has like recently started to do these animations where like an iPhone pops up, it shows you to subscribe. So like
Yeah.
it like kind of clicked that I was like, and I mean, I listen to a lot of people on YouTube as well about how to grow your channel, how to do these things. And a big part of it is like, you need to have calls to action, like probably even more than you're comfortable with.
Yeah.
So like, I probably have too many of them. I might scale them back a little bit, but from like my evergreen content, I want people to be engaged by and have a reason to find my Instagram, have a reason to use my Amazon link, have a reason to go to my Twitch and subscribe on my YouTube channel. Like I want multiple times throughout my video, people to have calls to action. And I think that people probably get annoyed of it, and it probably doesn't actually reach people as well unless you have cool animations. Like maybe I'm wrong there, but like I spent a lot of time just like hopefully making those ones really good and higher quality. High quality is something that I think is so massively important. I mean, your quality is amazing. You would be able to do Twitch so well, and the Twitch people are really they're spoiled. But as far as the YouTube side of things, like Pat Mayo, as soon as I decided to go off on my own. Pat Mayo, the Sports Geek, like these guys that have been doing YouTube for a long time and been doing it really well. The footballers, you've had those guys on as well.
Yeah.
So like they're so focused on having really high quality, and I think the big part of it is like someone actually you made it, they made it to your channel. You did the hard part, like they found you.
Yeah.
You need to make sure they don't leave right away. And a good way for them not to leave right away is for them to see something that's high quality, like even as simple as like getting the best internet you can get, like getting lighting, getting a background. Like it goes such a long way as to like someone actually being like, oh, this is like kind of legit, or versus like someone that just like flipped open their laptop and they're using their camera from their laptop and they have like a fuzzy internet connection. Like those people aren't going to stick around, especially if you're doing stuff that's evergreen, that you want to have longevity. Like I think that you really have to focus on quality and spend a lot of time on animations. I think it makes a big difference on like kind of what people see.
Yeah, that's so true. I've just started, integrating more like animations into my videos and stuff. And I don't like video editing, but you and me are in a very similar situation in terms of like when you go out on your own and you just become a full-time content creator, you don't have a choice but to do all that stuff. And I think people vastly underestimate I spend as much time like creating the content, researching and like videotaping it as I do actually video editing, and probably more.
It takes me 3 times as long to edit it that it does to record it.
Yeah, like I put out one video that's 45 minutes long, but realistically from start to finish might take me 4 or 5, 6 hours just to really get it out to the audience.
You're not dropping it in and pressing publish and you're good to go.
Yeah, exactly. So it's something that I was looking to like outsource right away, because I like video editing to a point, but not when I'm doing it for 20 hours a week, right? And it's become the majority of my work. So I actually have a video editor that works with me now that I actually pay, and he doesn't do all of the video editing for me. I still have to do a lot of that on my plate. Have you thought about outsourcing any work? If it's not video editing, like what would be the first thing that you want to outsource?
Yeah, I'm really big on paying. Like I've heard Levitan say this before, but I'm the same way. Like my time is extremely valuable. So if I have to pay someone to do something for me that I don't want to do, I'm totally willing to do that. Like I don't grocery shop. I get all my stuff delivered. It's probably a little bit more than it should be. But yeah, like I'm too much a perfectionist to outsource the video side of things, probably, especially with the animations, dude. Like it took me, like I could have been done. I could have tweaked those forever, probably. Like they're still not exactly how I want them to be, but I think that it would have caused probably more work, if anything, if I would have outsourced some of it, because I just would have ended up going back and forth through email, fix this, that it just and I was lucky I had a background in video editing from the start anyway. And to be completely honest, I'm probably better at that side of thing than I ever was at writing anyway. So like the writing side of thing did not come naturally to me. So I enjoy doing the video editing. I like the finished product. Yeah, it takes a long time to get those videos to be the finished product, and then everything behind the scenes that happens that you have to do to get people to find them as well. It's a lot of work, man. People don't realize how much time goes into just like the stuff that you don't even see in the finished product.
Yeah. And that's why we have to ask for call to actions, man, because we put so much work in. It's like all we're asking for is, a simple thumbs up or subscribe to the channel or whatnot. And I think, as I start to look at things more from like a business sense, I'm super intentional now with my call to actions. Like I'm getting to the point where I understand the YouTube landscape so well that depending on how I tweak my title and depending on what time of the day I put something out, I'll know within like 1,000 views how many views I'll get. And then based on that, I'll start doing different things, whether it's, some videos the only call to actions I'll have are just like hit the thumbs up or subscribe. But now as I'm trying to build like my email list, right? For instance, I put out, like my top running back rankings or whatever for 2019 last week, but I'll only give the top 12 and I'll say, hey, if you guys want my top 25, head to the link down below. They'll have to put their email address in, and that will be like the big call to action for that video, right? And then once you get their email address, they're into the email funnel. And I know that they watched my rankings video. I know that they filled out the email address to get my top 25. Now I'm like, hey guys, if you want my top 250 big board, it's in my draft guide, So it's like, it's this funnel. So I think being super intentional about your call to actions, because like you said, if you do too many of them, it starts coming off super salesy, right? And then that's when people are like,
it's a fine line, man. And you don't really know exactly how much is too much. And yeah, it's something that I personally struggle with. And you don't want to like spend all this time and then not tell people where they can find you, where to help you. Like one of the things that's helped me the most, quite honestly, is starting to do the one-on-one coaching, just because number one, I get like a personal interaction with the person, get to help someone get better at DFS, which is something that like I actually get a lot of enjoyment from. Like I'm having more fun sweating some of my clients' lineups on Sundays these days than my own. But even if it's someone that meets with me only one time, a lot of times they come back to my community and they're in my Discord, they're in the live streams, and like I've had a personal interaction with them one-on-one. And like they're so much more willing to stand up for me if I have a bad call, or stand up for me if someone is like kind of bringing some toxicity to like the Discord or to the live stream. So like having those, like, again, man, it's relationships even with like the people that are consuming your content at a different level. The one-on-one stuff's been really fun, and I've really been trying to build that up. So like even just telling people that on my YouTube channel that I do that has actually like probably been the best call to action I've done so far.
Yeah, I mean, I think the more natural you are with it, like if you're not trying to sell them things, if you look at it, if you kind of twist your mindset and you're like, okay, I'm actually providing them value, I'm not selling them, like, hey, they like what I'm giving them. If they want more, do this. So I'll say that throughout the videos. I'm like, yo, it takes me, a really long time to make these videos. If you guys are finding it valuable or informative, just like, please hit that thumbs up. That's what helps me out, So I put a lot of time, whatever. I think the more natural you can come off and the less salesy, the more willing people are to do that. And then once they kind of get that mojo going, where like they hit the thumbs up on this video and then the next video, it just becomes like a natural thing for them. And they tend to do that like all the time. So it is a fine line for sure, because at the end of the day, it's like that needs to be 1% of what your content is.
Oh yeah, your content's got to be good to like actually bring them value. So like for someone to actually think about like, hey, I'm going to use Joe's Amazon link today because I'm going to go buy a new TV, something like that, whatever. Like they have to like actually be reminded, number one, that you have that link, but also like they have to have felt like they've gained enough value from you to like actually help you out in that way. So it's such a fine line, man, but it all has to come down to doing good content. And I think you're doing a great job with that as well, for sure.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Now you said that, you sweat it out sometimes more with some of your clients' lineups and stuff. And I'm kind of the same way. Like if I know I'm really high on a guy during a given week, and during the sit start answers on like Sunday morning, I know that like 90% of my answers are like that one guy, and I don't have him. I don't own him in like any leagues or any lineups or whatever. I'll still be like more nervous about him than like the other players. Now, just in terms of being like I don't do DFS much. It's not, I don't know, it's just not what I enjoy. I don't like crunching numbers and doing all that kind of shit. But as someone who obviously, whether it's coaching or doing it personally, I'd imagine DFS gives you a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety. Regular season long stuff does too. So from like a mindset standpoint, how do you deal with like that stress? How do you deal with that anxiety if things are going bad? Like if you're having a bad Sunday, what do you do to kind of cool off or reset?
Yeah, so I show a lot of results. So like throughout the entire NFL season, I do a Twitch stream every Tuesday, going over my entry in the 1500 on DraftKings. So it's like a really small field, only like 60 people or something like that. But I show results, so people know exactly pretty much how I've been doing. And last year, for example, had like an amazing start. If you include preseason, the best run I've ever had in NFL, and it was a pretty steady uptrend until probably week 7 or so. And I was like, this is great. Like, it was like, it's never going to end. Like, it's never quite as good as you think, though. I went on a pretty bad downturn the second half of the NFL season. And I know a lot of people can relate to that. But the difference is I've got to go on stream every week and kind of justify the decisions I made. And it's not fun to show the graph that was way up. Like, I mean, week 8, I'm up like 18K. Well, like the end of the season, I'm still profitable in this tournament, but I just punted off like so much of my winnings, and I did it publicly. So like, I think that it has affected me in some ways to where like I have to take a step back with my game sometimes and realize that I have to you can't play to lose. As soon as you start to play to lose, like your decision making totally changes. So I think I turned a corner towards the end of last season and not to care as much about the content as I probably did at one point. But a big part of it that is kind of scary in some ways too is that the wins start to feel like the losses after a while. There's like not a huge difference between like, awesome, like I had a great week, I won. It's more like relief in some ways during NFL. And if it does start to feel that way, it probably means you're playing stakes that are a little bit too high for you. You don't want it to affect your everyday life, man. Like there's times where, like when I first started playing higher stakes, and I'm not even like close to the highest stakes out there, but like probably like the mid stakes, most people would say. But like had a bad week, had a bad couple weeks, like I could see it in my mood. My girlfriend could see it in my mood. So I've like really tried to get better at separating that. But it's not easy, man. It's something that like you have to be able to just completely get away. Manny always makes fun of me on his stream because I talk about hitting like the meditation app to reset. Like I'm really big on like on that side of thing, like mindfulness, like really trying to get your head in the right place before you're working, before you're making DFS lineups. So like that's one way that I do that. I still work out every single day. I think that's super important for just your kind of head in general, and making good decisions. So that's another thing that I'll try and do to blow off some steam.
Okay. Yeah, I'm the same way. I think mindset is like exponentially more important than the actual, physical work that you're putting in, because you can't do good work if you're not in a good mindset. Now, you mentioned like meditation, you mentioned working out and stuff, and you mentioned like getting your mind right before you dive into the work. Do you have like a morning routine or anything like that?
Yeah, dude. I've done a few different things. I actually got to the point where I think I was overdoing my morning routine to where like I was doing like an hour and a half worth of stuff. And then I'd be sitting there like, wow, I really have done nothing today. So I've pivoted to, before I open up my phone, before I do anything when I wake up, slam a glass of water. But I also directly after I get my coffee is always going to be my number one, step one. But step 2 is I do the one thing in the day that I have to get done or I have to work on. It's my number one priority for the day is the first thing I do before I open any emails, before I open anything. And I give myself at least an hour, hopefully 2 hours just doing that I don't have Slack chat up. I don't have anything else up. There's no distractions. So at least I can feel good about have like knocked out a chunk of something that matters. And then I normally right after that, if I'm not doing a live stream that day, I'll work out and then I'll come back and then I'll start to attack the emails and stuff like that. But my process before was I would wake up, I would work out, I would do the meditation app. I would I'm like I said, I'm big on reading. Like all these books back here are ones that I've read usually multiple times. I'll read for like 15 minutes just to get my mind right for the day. So I don't know, man. I've gone back and forth. Like there's times where I thought I was overdoing it and it just felt like too much, but I've kind of simplified it a little bit and I think it's helped. But what do you do every morning? I'm always interested in what other people are doing as well. Cause like, I think I probably was overdoing it for a while, but now I might not be doing enough. So I'm kind of at a weird spot with it, I guess.
Yeah, I'm just of the mindset that it's just so subjective, and people have like a really big problem with putting everything in a box or putting everything in a label. And even you saying like, oh, I did it for too long, or if I don't do it long enough. But if it's like, if that's what gets you right, then I feel like, if you need to take 2 hours, and then do that. And that's something I've kind of learned over the last year. I figured for myself, I can't get into like a routine. There are certain things that I do consistently, I would say, maybe not every day. Maybe it's not even like intentional. It's just things that I do. I think one thing that you pointed out was like that number one to-do list thing is so important. It's one of the things I learned really early on when I started working on my own, is that if you make a to-do list, put a maximum of 3 things on it, probably 2 or 1. And it's got to be like the biggest action items that you need that day. Otherwise, you're going to make a list of 12 things. 9 of them are just bullshit items that are going to make you feel good and feel like you did something, but the only thing that's actually pushing you forward is the one thing you didn't do in that
Man, I'm still struggling with it because I have like a Trello, which is basically like a big list. You can color code it and all that. So I basically would do that. And I spend like 10 or 15 minutes every single day. It's one of the first things I do as well, of planning my day, planning my week, how I'm progressing through my tasks. But my big issue when I started working on my own is I'd have all these things. I'd have it all color coded. I was spending probably too much time planning in general, but even past that, like I'd start knocking things off every day, but then I'd realize the things I'm knocking off are not my big priorities anyway. So I'd finish my day and I'd be like, oh, cool. I knocked off a bunch of stuff on my to-do list. But again, these 3 things at the top are pushed off to the next day, pushed off to the next day, pushed off to the next day. So like, I think that like, if you spread yourself too thin, like I talked about it before, like you won't get anything done if you're just doing too much of a lot of different things. So I'm really trying to focus on mastering one thing, mastering the next thing, mastering the next thing. And I just haven't done a very good job at that for sure when I first started working on my own. And it's something that I'm like actively trying to improve on for sure.
Yeah, I think the most important thing is being really, really aware of what pushes your business forward. For me, I know at the end of the day, putting out one quality YouTube video is going to make the other 90% of my brand work, Yeah. So I'm someone who, I don't like planning the day of, like on the night before, I have a big whiteboard on the wall over there, and I'll write my to-do list the night before for what I'm going to do the next day. And like for today, it was this interview. And before we got on, I filmed the video that's going to go out tomorrow. Those are like my 2 big to-do things. Yeah. And, it might take me, like this interview will be an hour. What I filmed earlier today was like an hour too. So that was like really 2 hours of good, like quality deep work. And I know that's what's going to push my stuff forward. And I can write down, tweak website, tweak email form, whatever. That's not the stuff that I'm really worried about. I know at the end of the day, if I do quality work with this interview, if I do quality work with the video that I filmed earlier in the day, I'll be happy and I'll be satisfied. Once you start putting too much on your plate, that's not really, what pushes your business forward. That's where you start getting, all this like anxiety and not being able to move forward properly. And speaking of the cell phone thing, if I can give one tip to people, don't look at your phone when you wake up. Do not even acknowledge the phone. If you can hold off as long as you can, you'll be able to do so much more quality work. I find myself, if I wake up and the first thing I do is look at my phone and go on social, like I just get bad anxiety. And I see all, like 10 emails, 15 Twitter notifications, 1,000 YouTube comments. I'm like, fuck, it's all unimportant stuff, that's really going to hold you back. So I do the same thing. I try to stay off the cell phone as long as I possibly can in the morning, get a cup of coffee and dive into deep work, whatever it is that I need to accomplish like that day, first thing. That is what gets me going.
And I'm always the sharpest, like right in the morning as well too. So I don't want to waste an hour, even a half an hour of like where my mind is the sharpest on my phone. Like it's just like the worst, I think, at like kind of a way of you can use your time. Like let me ask you this too. And I struggle with it, like as an entrepreneur, like we have a lot of things going on. We have a lot of things that are somewhat open-ended as well. Like do you ever struggle with like, when am I done for the day? Like there's always more you can be doing, right?
Yeah, that was something I struggled with for a while until I can't remember what her name was, but I was with I worked with a business coach for all of last year, and he lives out in LA, and I went and visited him, and I stayed with him, and he had some of his friends that are pretty successful business wise, and I was talking to one of them, and she like really hammered it home that like the way your business is, as someone who, as an entrepreneur that's trying to build a business by yourself, you got to think of like your business and your life as they're the same thing. So it's like a business cycle. So if doing work for like 2 or 3 hours a day is, the best work you could do for that day, be happy with that. And don't feel like you need to push it, because you only have like a limited amount of energy in the day, right? Maybe working out for an hour is like 50% of the energy that you can give for that day. Like I've found that my best life cycle is like really when I find, I feel like you have a good cycle. When you wake up in the morning, you're like, oh, I have a lot of energy today, or you don't have a lot of energy today. And I found that the most productive I am is when I realize those days where I have a lot of energy, put that energy right into creative work, like immediately. And if it's like 3 or 4 really good deep hours of creative work for that day, like I'm happy with that, and I can chill for the rest of the day. There are days, of course, where I'm going to have to work 12 to 14 hours a day. That's not a normal thing, but there are going to be days where I have to do that. And, you just have to kind of push through that bullshit. But I became really comfortable with myself, and it's something that I did struggle with a lot in the beginning. I became comfortable with myself knowing that it's okay if I do 3 or 4 hours of deep work and not comparing myself to my friends who are working 9 or 10 hours a day,
Yeah. So I have friends too that like I said before, like they work their 9 to 5, like they get home and it's like literally crunch time for me for DFS, and they're like done for the day. So it's like I live with a roommate right now that he comes back and he literally like sees me grinding. Like I've got my headphones in, like most important hour of my day is right when he gets home. So it's tough to balance that at times. It's been tough for me too, just to know when I should be done. Like I'm going to really try this summer to enjoy a little bit more. And I definitely didn't do that enough last summer. I was just so kind of involved with with work and just consumed with it in some ways. Cause like I probably said a couple of times, like I don't know how to do things halfway. So I get a little bit consumed with things for sure. I'm trying to work on that this summer for sure.
Yeah, because we get caught up so much in the day-to-day grind, right? It's always like, oh, I can't wait to kind of step back and look at the bigger picture and start organizing things. Before you know, it's like, oh, but I also have to do X, Y, Z, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I think like one thing that helped me too was really like I took a break, from putting out videos for like a week or two when the NFL season kind of stopped. And I was like, okay, I need to put a few systems in place. I need to know, what my schedule is going to be like throughout this season. Because like you said, it's like, oh, I want to enjoy the summer. I'm saying the same thing. But I know as soon as, June, July hits,
in theory,
and I'm going to be going nuts. I'm going to be working so many hours a day. So I think like taking a step back, taking a break sometimes, and thinking about it from like a long-term game. It's like, oh, maybe I'll miss 1 or 2 videos for this week. But if that means I get like a really solid week of organizing and planning for the next 3-4 months, in my eyes, I think it's a trade-off that's worth considering for the long run.
Yeah, I was just in Arizona for spring break with my girlfriend, and it was an awesome place to go and reset because you literally can't play DFS in Arizona. So like I knew I couldn't play the entire time I was there. So like I wake up early. So I woke up and like got some like good planning work, like what you're saying, like kind of good work down for when I got back. But I was still like refreshed a little bit because I took some time to like get away from that DFS grind and all that. And like this time of the year, like I'm playing golf, I'm playing hockey, but it's not a big DFS commitment for me because I don't play much NBA. I played MLB in the past. This year, I'm probably not going to play as much MLB just because, like I said, like the MLB grind is right during the time of the year where I should probably be resetting before football, at least mentally. So I think trying to pick your spots in that way is really big.
Yeah, and when you do that type of work, like when you're doing more like organized planning, looking at the bigger picture, for me at least, it feels like a lot of the weight comes off my chest. When you're doing the day in and day out, like putting out content 5 times a week, 8 times a week, whatever, it feels like you're just running on a hamster wheel. It's like you put something out, it's like, okay, got to get ready for the next one and the next one, and the next one. When you get to take a step back, like it relieves a lot of the tension that you didn't really know was there. It's like you knew you had something to do and you knew you had to look at the bigger picture, but until you actually do it, you kind of have that something sitting on your shoulder and your chest. Now, you mentioned, you were out there with your girlfriend, and based on, the article that you wrote about, hanging up the skates, she seems like you guys have been together for a long time, and she's kind of been through it all with you. Now, I kind of want to segue into just like the notion of surrounding yourself with good people. And you mentioned like you were nervous about like what your friends thought about you when if you decided to stop playing hockey and whatnot. And it's difficult to find people when you're like a creative type and you're making content. It's difficult to find people that do the same thing you do, or have the same, I guess, drive in a sense. And I don't want to make it sound like we're working harder or anything like that, because there are plenty of people that work in companies that work very hard. But just the way that we think about things, I found it difficult for me to surround myself with other people that are like-minded. First of all, like, how do you find other people that are, in the same mindset that you are? And how important would you say that is for, pushing yourself forward and always like improving yourself as a person?
Man, it's high level conversations like we're having right now. It's literally like building relationships with people that think like you do, expanding on that, like getting to know them. So like my number one thing that I missed from hockey is hanging out in the locker room with the guys. So like I needed to capture that somehow through my work. Like it's a pretty an isolated industry in general. Like if you're playing DFS, yes, but also content, like almost all of us work from home. So like there's guys that that I work with that I make an effort, like I talked about the FSTA conference, I make an effort to go meet some of these people in person, to like actually hang out with them. Like Matt Harmon, I've met him a couple times now. Awesome guy. Like a lot of these people are the exact same as you would think they would be in real life, but just being able to like have a beer with these guys, like TJ Hernandez, like he's someone that will like has come up like before me in the industry, but was there from the very beginning of when I started. So like I've met him in person multiple times. The fantasy footballers, those guys are amazing human beings in person as well. So like getting to like actually go to their studio, talk to them, like having a personal relationship with these people is like something that I don't think people place enough emphasis on. It's so easy to just be here on your computer, grind written content, grind video content. But like the people that are really going to help you get to the next step are the ones that are willing to go through a wall for you. It's the same thing in sports, man. So it's like the people that like my teammates that I was the closest with were the first ones to step up for me if like anything went down on the ice, you know what I mean? So like I think like thinking about it from that athlete perspective has really helped me. And honestly, like, and I would listen to Gary Vee all the time. So he's mentioned this, like cutting people out of your life that aren't helping you move forward. I've done that. Like I have friends from college that like they're so negative all the time about their 9 to 5. They're so negative. Like they're not motivated at all to really do good work. And it affects me too. Like I hang out with them. It's like, okay, cool. Like maybe I don't need to go home and do this, this, and this. But like I have so many more friends now through the industry, but even in my personal life that are driven people that aren't satisfied with really just like having a normal, like just average life. Like I want a lot of things, but I also like am so driven to like be successful more than anything that like I'm just not going to let anyone get my way, and I want to surround people with that feel the same way.
Yeah, I like never feel, I don't know if this is the right way to put it, but like I never feel as alive as I do when I'm talking with people like that see things the same way that I do. It's just like it's super refreshing, because the majority of the people in my life and my friends are, typical 9 to 5ers. And again, nothing wrong with that. Those are people I love and people that I hang out with all the time. But like, there are some times that if I'm in a creative rut, or if I just need some kind of push, it's going to come from the people who have been where you are before, and they can kind of show you the path. So it's like, I think that's so important. And cutting people out of your life, it like sounds severe, but it's not so much like you don't have to call them and be like, you're no longer in my life. It's just like start to go separate ways, because some people, it's like their focus and their priorities are, working all week, going out on the weekends. And it's, all of us like to do that too, but you start to find that your energy is better spent or even more enjoyable in other places and doing your passion and your hobbies. And, we're fortunate enough to the point where like, our hobbies are something that we can monetize, right? So it's like, it's easy for us to put our energy there because we enjoy doing that so much. But I do think like surrounding yourself with the right people, or at least like even my friends that don't think the same way I do at all, they're still supportive. Like if I have people that I was friends with that like weren't supportive of what I was doing, those are the people I would just be like, okay, I would never hang out with them. You know what I mean? It's just like something that you do have to push out of your life, and you do have to sacrifice in a sense. But I don't know. In the long run, it's what's going to, I guess, push you to the next level.
For sure, man. So it's like, I talk to one of my good friends about this all the time. And he's like, I'm envious of you because he works in a sales job. He's talking to people all day long that he doesn't know, that might not necessarily be interested in what he has to say anyway. I talk to people that I want to talk to all day long, like people like you that like I said, like I love conversations like this because this is like what I'm passionate about. And like, I have groups of people that I talk to every single day for different sports, for things that I'm interested in. And it's really cool to be able to like actually spend my time. Like, I feel like I'm actually talking to people that I would like to be talking about. A lot of jobs, like, you don't really have that luxury. And I think people don't realize that.
Yeah, for sure. It's interesting, man. Just the idea of just creating content and having this audience kind of just like built around you. And it's like, you know, once you start to gain a following, it's crazy that so many people would want to listen to you. But when you are, alone creating content, it gets super lonely when you're by yourself. You're doing all this stuff and you don't have coworkers that you would normally have at a normal job, but you do have these people that listen to you and appreciate what you're saying. So I think that's like another thing that I try to work on, because that was one of my bigger problems when I first started working by myself was, not having that camaraderie, like whether it was, a sports team or whatever, or you're just your coworkers that are the same age and that you can relate to. You don't have that anymore. So I implore the people out there, building a community and trying to engage, like really, really make that a big part of what you're doing. I spend a large majority of my day answering all of my YouTube comments, answering people on Twitter, whether they're negative or positive. It's just like, you have to do that. You build those relationships. It might seem fake, but these are people that care about you and care about what you have to say. So like, likewise, do the same. And those are the people that will, like you said, your teammates will go to bat for you. These people will do the same thing. And those will be like your number one marketers, really, because they'll start telling their friends, they'll start telling their people about it.
And I'm so much happier. And like the content grind, like the written content grind at a big site, at a small site, it's great. Like you get whatever, people retweet your stuff, like people appreciate your work. There's nothing like doing video content. There's nothing like doing educational evergreen video content, because you're not only helping people that find your videos on YouTube, great, but like as you start to build a community, like I've gotten so much more one-on-one interaction. And for me, like that's so much more rewarding than writing an article that like maybe 150, 200 people are going to click. Like it's so much more, I think, rewarding to like have relationships with some of these people. And I've really I've gotten more engagement since I stopped writing, to be completely honest, and just started to like expand to some of these other platforms. So like I'm really enjoying it so far. It still feels like I haven't been like completely doing this side of thing on my own, but like it's more rewarding. It causes more growth. I think it's just like, it's the direction content's going anyway. So I think just trying to be not even necessarily first, but just be earlier than the rest of the people that are going to kind of start panicking in some ways when this new generation of people that watches video games on Twitch, like where are they going to want to consume their content 5-6 years from now? That's what I'm really focused on.
Yeah, it's not about what you want to do personally. It's about where the market's going, where the eyeballs are. You follow where the eyeballs are. You deliver your message native to that platform, whatever. And just like an interesting anecdote, something that I wanted to focus more on this year was LinkedIn, right? Posting on LinkedIn. And I was like, I don't just want to be an asshole and post like my fantasy football rankings on LinkedIn. I was like, how can I make, native content to LinkedIn that's focused around business stuff? And I'm like, holy shit, wait, I already do this like behind the scenes interview with people in the industry, right? And this is like relevant to any business, any industry. So what I did was I started taking clips of these interviews and I would put them on LinkedIn. And before I did that, I literally went around on LinkedIn and I friend requested everyone that works at like a fantasy brand, right? It was the Action Network, DraftKings, FanDuel, whatever, because I know right now that LinkedIn is the organic reach on LinkedIn is crazy, right? If you post something, 90% of your network is actually going to see it. That's not the case on Twitter, on Facebook anymore, right? So you have to take advantage of these little nuances in these social platforms. And the goal of that was like, okay, I add all these people from the fantasy industry. I post this stuff on them because I'm not going to be able to get in front of them any other way. And they'll see it and they'll be like, oh, this is good content. Like, let me connect with them, whatever. And ironically, 4for4, the company that you kind of started with, they emailed me like yesterday or 2 days ago. They're like, hey, I saw your interviews on LinkedIn, the behind the business stuff. And they're like, we really liked what you were doing. We want to connect with you. And we want to like maybe advertise through your YouTube channel, you know, our products and stuff. I was like, wow, that's exactly like what I was going for. Hopefully, you know, getting more sponsorships. And if like a DraftKings or a FanDuel saw what I was doing, they'd be like, oh, you know what? Like, this is an up and coming kid in the industry. Like, we want to get on board early on. And that's like, you know, what you're doing with Twitch very early on. I think LinkedIn is a great platform to get in on. It's like, you can look at what people did through Twitter or through blogging or even podcasting. It's still early, but podcasting, you know, fantasy football was ahead of the wave when it comes to podcasting. It's very hard to get in there now. YouTube is still very early on, but I'm seeing more and more, you know, YouTube channels pop up like every day. And I'm thankful that I got in pretty early because, you know, once you hit a certain number of subs, it's almost like the growth is exponential. YouTube kind of just like hands you all of the organic reach and things like that. It's great, but you always have to be looking at these other platforms. There's so much stigma around Instagram and stuff like that, only because the people that run the industry are old and they don't like Instagram. But it's like, guess what? That's where the eyeballs are. That's where it's going to be in 5 years, you know?
LinkedIn is like the undercover, like one of the best places you could put your content right now. It's crazy. Like I always had a LinkedIn just from college and all of that. I did the same thing as you. I just went and added everyone in the fantasy industry, anyone that like had football analytics. Like I went through and added everyone. I did like the premium, so where I could just add everyone. So I guess built that up. Like I spent like 2 or 3 days, did that, started posting content there. And believe it or not, like just thinking about the demographic of LinkedIn, it's so much different than some of these other platforms anyway. You're targeting for like some of the things we're doing, you're targeting people that actually really care about this type of content. Like people that are in their office all day that like wish they had this sports job or like wish they could bet on sports for a living. Like it's a great demographic to capture. Like I've gotten, like full disclosure, I've gotten more one-on-one coaching clients from LinkedIn than any other platform. So like, it's definitely something you want to be putting your content on. I haven't prioritized it probably enough recently because I've been like trying to test a bunch of really like kind of different kind of things on Instagram. Again, like Instagram's where the eyes are right now. It's a really hard platform to grow on just because you have to capture their someone's some people have to notice you quickly or they're going to scroll right past you. So I've tried a lot of different things with video, like different ways to capture people's like attention on Instagram. It's with mixed results so far. I've tried some I've noticed that just like static pictures tend to get more likes than videos for whatever reason. Hashtags, all of that sort of thing. Like Instagram is something that I'm still, I feel like I'm still really green on. So I'm interested on like your kind of what's your Instagram experience been so far with content?
So I opened up my brand's Instagram account last summer, right before the season started. And we grew, not huge, but like we grew quickly throughout the summer. And then engagement completely dies down when football season's not going on. Right. So like, you know, week 10 hits through like now, you're not really getting much of a following unless you're pushing your audience from one platform to another. A few like tactical tips, like when you're going video, and posting pictures too, vertical is where you need to be at because it takes up most of the screen. Like you said, people scroll by that stuff so quickly. What really plays well too is putting the bars on the top and bottom of your videos, whether it's usually black bars with white text or vice versa, white bars with black text. Those are little like tactical tricks that will eventually, you know, it's because people notice them, but that will become the norm eventually because people understand that that's what works. And then every video will have that. So then people will start to, you know, react to not reacting to it anymore. So, I mean, when it comes to Instagram, I just feel like posting more and more content is probably what gets it because that's how people are going to find you. It's not like SEO, but it is like in the popular feed or whatever. If they see your picture, if you have 3 or 4 or 5 pictures a day or videos or whatever, it's going to be more likely for them to find you, I guess. But I'm still definitely trying to figure out Instagram. I would just say like, don't put the same stuff that you're putting out on these other platforms on Instagram. You know, it's got to be native. It's got to look good on Instagram. And the caption has to be, you know, valuable to Instagram. You wouldn't post a YouTube video and then be like, hey guys, it's a YouTube video, like go check out my blog post, you know? And that's what a lot of people do on like Twitter. That's what a lot of people do on Instagram as well. And that's not the way you give value, you know?
Yeah, it's got to be some sort of engaging content too, because the way that the Instagram algorithm works anyway, you have to answer every single one of your comments. You have to like really like the only way they continue to funnel your content higher up in people's feeds is if it has engagement. So like asking leading questions on your title, having the right hashtags, just all that stuff's so important. Like I definitely have not figured it out yet. I've been testing a lot of different things throughout this part of the year. Just like you said, it's such a different part of the year for growth. I don't know, man. I'm going to focus a lot on that, I think, for football this year, though. I might even like scale back some of the other platforms just because I do think that it's one of the most important ones that's growing. Yeah,
it's so difficult because if you're trying to make it in the content game, like you have to be everywhere. But as a one-man team, it's like, it's hard to, you know, vary your content and not say the same thing on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, Twitch. So it's like, you got to find some kind of system in place where you could take one main key piece of content, which is why I'm glad that I have YouTube as like my pillar, because you can diversify that content and put it on all these other different platforms. You have to do it a little differently, but for the most part, like the key value prop that you're giving out on YouTube can be diversified to all those platforms. So I think like having a system in place, and for me, it was like, I would, you know, go on a video and be like, hey, like I'm looking for someone to help me out, like posting stuff organically. And I'd have, you know, 10 college kids reach out, be like, hey, I want to be part of the brand. And I would be like, hey, this is what we're going to do. I'll take like one of them. And now I work with like 3 or 4 of them that help me out. And I'll be like, I upload a video and then one of them will come in, do the title, do the keywords, take the thumbnail, put it on to a podcast or whatever. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's really about putting these systems in place. Otherwise, you know, you're going to burn yourself out because you're going to be putting out more content, but you're going to have to spread it around more and more. So it gets kind of crazy creating content.
It is, man. And outsourcing that stuff probably is the way to do it. Haven't gotten quite to that point yet, but man, it's a grind with that sort of thing, but it is worth it in the end. I think just the idea of doing longer form content first, like I did my MLB week, my PGA week, my NBA week, all those things, like those were hour-long live streams on Twitch. I've got like endless amount of Instagram content if I really wanted to edit it all down to really small things. So I'm already editing it into more like focused stuff for YouTube. I can go in pretty easily to where I was editing for YouTube and be like, oh, okay, this is an interesting 50 seconds worth of content and throw it up on Instagram. So it's like, it makes it easier if you start from that point. I mean, but you're already doing that. So I think that still a lot of people don't realize that you don't have to just do different content for everything. You should, but you can still grab little spots from your longer form stuff and throw it up on Instagram.
Oh yeah, that's what I mean. I don't mean like create completely new content. Like basically my YouTube video, if it is the running back rankings, like for Instagram, I'll put up a picture that is completely native to Instagram. I think
right.
More,
no, I get what you mean. Yeah.
More in terms of like the actual creative, like you can't put a 1280 by 720 YouTube video on Instagram because it doesn't look good. Like you need to be able to edit it and kind of change it vertically. So that would be the tip, is just make sure that it's native to whatever platform you're putting it out. But you can find a bunch of different ways to vary that depending on, you know, what the pillar piece of content really is. So we've dove into a lot, and I think that would probably bring us to a wrap here. As I like to do at the end, leave the audience with one piece of actionable advice, a tip, a trick. Can be a mindset thing, can be, you know, a physical software, hardware tool, whatever it is. The stage is yours, my friend.
I think the biggest thing for me personally is like, you can't be afraid to bet on yourself, but you have to be willing to put in the work. If you're going to do that, like you have to go all in. Like you can't go into something halfway. And it's the same thing with content. Like one of the themes I think of what we've been talking about today is like, you really have to become a master of one thing before you completely move on. If you just start dipping your toe into all these different platforms, all these different ways of doing content, you're never going to truly finish any of it. And so like, I really am trying to focus on personally, and I would stress that other people do this as well. If you get your footing everywhere, that's great. but it's okay to take like to kind of scale down one aspect of what you're doing to really lock in on one area that you think is important and is going to drive engagement to your community. So like for this point of the year, for me personally, I'm ramping down Twitch a little bit because I really want to lock in my evergreen content on YouTube before NFL starts up again. So I'm really focused on that. I'm focused on Instagram, just like testing things right now, seeing what things people actually notice. Again, before NFL drives everything in our industry. So like, I love hockey. I'm always going to do hockey content, but people are going to find me through football.
Right.
So I'm focused on getting like that evergreen floor done on YouTube so that by the time that NFL comes around, I can do more Twitch streams. I can maybe even do more hockey at that point. But I think that having a specific plan is really important. And if you are going to bet on yourself, you have to, like, being an entrepreneur, like, we work a ton more hours than people realize. I will say that. But but if you're just going to focus on doing things that are extremely high quality content, I would almost always say that that's better. If you have to spend a little bit more money, like, I mean, to do what we're doing, I've spent money just to make sure my quality is good. And I know that eventually is going to come around and be totally worth it. Anything that I leave, any type of content that I do, any type of evergreen content, I want people to see it and be like, wow, okay, like that's like pretty legit. Like, no matter what comes out of your mouth, like, you have to kind of show people first that that you're kind of worthy of their time, basically. So that would be my biggest advice.
Yeah, that's really, really strong stuff. And I do want to circle back, as you said, like, you know, be really good at like the first thing you do and then move on. And I you know, I've said a few times, like, you got to be everywhere when you're creating content, but that's very true. If you have something that you're very good at, like one platform, like I could stick to YouTube and put all my focus and energy on YouTube, and that would probably be a really good thing for me. So I don't want to say that, like, when you get started, you have to open up all these accounts. Definitely not the case. You might start something and realize that maybe you don't get enough engagement there, or you're not that good on camera and you'd rather just stick to podcasting or writing or anything like that. But like you said, get good at one thing and then try to diversify. You do have to end up in different platforms, but definitely stick to one place, get good at it, and then start to move.
There's only so many hours in a day, right? So like, basically, like, the YouTube thing, a big mistake that I made originally was I was just like throwing stuff up on YouTube and just like wondering why I had no views, wondering why I had no likes. It wasn't until like I really like spent some time and be like, oh, like, this SEO thing really matters. Oh, like, my thumbnails are terrible, no one's gonna see these. So like, mastering YouTube is just something like, and I'm not even close to where I need to be yet, but like, focusing on that, not being completely spread out to where like I just didn't care about YouTube and didn't care about my engagement there. So like, focusing on that, you can still be everywhere, but like tailing some things back so that you really focus on a certain area is really big.
Yeah. And if you are going to be in a bunch of areas, like you said, try to understand what the important areas of that platform are. Like you said, with YouTube, I can't overestimate or overstate how important, like, the titles and the thumbnails are. They are literally everything. You think of YouTube as a search platform. That's literally what it's the video version of Google. So the more general your stuff is, the more people are searching for it. And since fantasy football is a very unsaturated place, like, you are going to have a decent amount of search power in there because not that many people are using those titles or those search terms or whatnot. So take advantage of this little golden window that we have right now to hit it, because soon there's going to be a million people doing it. But just figure out what works on each platform and then attack that. Don't just expect everything to work the same on each platform. All right, Joe, let's wrap this up. That is the final showdown for us. Let the people know where they could find you, what you got going on, where do you want them to funnel to?
Yeah, so a lot of people are probably watching this on YouTube, hopefully Instagram as well. But YouTube, you can just go to youtube.com/Joe Holka, Instagram.com/Joe Holka. And then if you want to catch any of my live streams, there over on Twitch. So twitch.tv/Joe Holka. It's pretty easy. If you want to learn how to become a profitable daily fantasy sports player and how to get better at betting, start now by hitting that subscribe icon in the bottom right-hand corner so you don't miss anything. Have a ton of courses on demand on YouTube, so be sure and check those out. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys next time.